of course, that you actually have a vehicle that you're en route with, and then they don't rush you. If they rushed you, they would have 1/3 of their whole workforce quit. That's because 1/3 of the workforce is over 65, and they probably wouldn't appreciate being rushed.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Right now, if I wanted to buy an RV, we've got some RV dealerships here in Ocala. I would go down there, I would buy it, I would drive off the lot with it. So is Ocala different? I mean, do we have RV dealerships, but every town doesn't have them? I'm confused.
Oh, no, no. What we're talking about here is the way the vehicles get delivered from their points of manufacture or modification to the dealerships where they're sold.
Oh, okay.
So basically, they have to get just like a car dealership will get cars on a car carrying truck from Detroit.
Right.
These RV dealers get their RVs delivered to them not on trucks, but by people simply driving them in from the factories.
Is that true for the fifth wheels? Is that what they call the trailers?
Yep. Fifth wheel trailers are delivered the same way. Most companies that build trailers have tow vehicles on hand that they have drivers use, and so the vehicles are actually provided, so the driver doesn't have to have a vehicle of his own in either event.
Okay, so now let's see if I'm picturing this correctly. Could I? Let's say. So where are they? So I have to go to where they're manufactured. I'm still okay. Before I ask my question, let me make sure I understand this.
Okay.
Are they manufactured in how many locations in America do we have RV manufacturers?
Okay, well, first of all, I better let you know that my book covers more than just RVs. All the specialty vehicles you can think of, like ambulances, school bus.
Ambulances?
UPS delivery vans.
Wow, that's cool.
All the specialty vehicles are delivered the same way, and that's why you never see an ambulance or a school bus on the back of a truck any more than you see RVs on the back of trucks.
Oh, wow.
And there are 4,000 companies in this country that build or modify or final manufacture, final assemble RVs and specialty vehicles, of which about 200 of them are in Florida.
Well, we have E1 right here in Ocala. Will they make
an example of one? That is one of the 200.
Okay, so I could go to E1 and say, I'd like you to put me on the list of people who could drive fire engines to their final destinations.
Yeah. That's how they get there. They've got their drivers that deliver to whether or not they're hiring at this time. That you never know which ones are going to be hiring, which ones aren't. But the fact is, there are 4,000 of them. And if one company isn't hiring, another one is, and it doesn't take very long to get this job. It's a pretty easy job to access.
Do I need a special license to drive an RV? You just need your own license, a regular driver's license, right? But a fire engine?
If you own an RV, it can be any RV, and you can drive it with an ordinary driver's license. If you are delivering an RV that is a bus conversion, one of those ones that's as big as a Greyhound bus,
right,
then you would need a CDL for that. But if you own it, you don't need a CDL. Go figure that one out.
Yeah, really. So you have a CDL.
You know something? I've never had a CDL.
Oh, really?
I've taken the test because I wanted to see how easy or difficult it was for other people to do it, and I found it was very easy. It was surprisingly easy. But I've never needed one because in order to be required to have a CDL to do this job, you have to be delivering a vehicle that weighs more than a Greyhound bus. And 95% of the vehicles we're talking about here weigh less than that. And if it weighs less than that, you don't need a CDL.
Oh, wow. So do you sometimes find yourself in a convoy? Like there's a dealership that's buying 2 or 3, so you have to team up with these other people who are also driving?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happens now and then. With some frequency, you get 2 vehicles that are either going to the same place or going to 2 places that line up along the same route. And this is very handy for couples who do this. By the way, couples make up 40% of this whole workforce of 100,000 people that are doing this job as we speak, either part-time or full-time. And couples will follow each other in a pair of vehicles. That way, let me walk you through the process. Let's say we got 2 vehicles that are leaving from where you are. One's going to Salt Lake City and the other's going to Seattle, okay? So what we've got is the company will give you a cash advance that will cover the fuel outbound and the airplane trip home, assuming you want to come back by air. If you come back by land, that's okay, too. The company still pays for it. They'll get you home again. So they're paying for the fuel. No matter what the gas costs, you don't have to pay for it. They're paying for the trip home as well. And what happens is you will drive out to Salt Lake City, the 2 of you, following each other in the pair of vehicles because Salt Lake's along the route to Seattle. Deliver the vehicle in Salt Lake City, and then the two of you will share the driving on into Seattle. And what will happen when you get back to your company is the vehicle that was driven to Salt Lake City, the number of miles that was, is paid to the driver at the rate of around 35 cents per mile. So your first driver of that couple that's making the trip together is making around $750 or so dollars. On the other hand, the other one that goes all the way to Seattle is more miles, and that run pays about $1,000. And so consequently, between the two trips together, this couple is making $1,750 clear before taxes, just for that one trip.
Oh, wow.
Now, does the person that is the driver of the RV, since they're a contractor, do they have to cover their own insurance, or is the RV insured by the by the destination or by the manufacturer?
It's covered by whomever you are working for. In other words, it could be, if you're working for an RV dealer, sometimes they will send drivers out to the factories, and the drivers will come back to them, and then they will be the ones to pay the drivers. But if you're working for the factory, it works the other way around. The factory is the one that will pay you. But the fact is that no matter which one it is, they always cover the insurance. I've never found an exception to that. So insurance is another thing you don't have to worry a bit about.
Wow. Craig Chilton is our guest. He's telling us how we can make money delivering vehicles. And we thought it was originally about RVs and trailers, but it turns out it's ambulances, fire engines, school buses, UPS trucks, et cetera. Anything that is not delivered on a vehicle, another big vehicle. And the book is titled How to Get Paid $50,000 a Year to Travel Without Selling Anything. So the book, does it give us names and address? What kind of a book is it? I mean, is it a reference book? Do I say, will the book show me who to contact and that kind of thing, phone numbers?
Yes, basically the book is like a textbook, really. It's a very detailed book of instruction that tells how to get this job easily and then how to get the most out of it. Because if a person doesn't have that resource, they typically will go through a 4-year-long learning curve of trial and error to find the best little tricks of the trade for making the deliveries. And there are a lot of them, and they're easy to learn, but the thing is that you aren't going to learn them automatically without going through a lot of trial and error. This gets you started after about 6 hours of reading with the full knowledge that I've had for the last 35 years. And as far as the companies listed are concerned, we have a website that we provide the link to. It's a special link that goes to a page that has live links in it for companies, so that a person can actually click on a live link and learn more about the company before they even check into it.
Is the RV, and this is maybe an RV specific question, but is it an American phenomenon, or are Europeans and other parts of the world, are they into RVs as much as we are? It seems like and maybe it's just because we're in Florida. We see them all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, you'll probably see them more in Florida than most places, but they're all over the place. In Europe, they tend to call them caravans, but they're still RVs, and the job still exists in Europe, and it can be done in Europe, and our resources even provide European addresses and websites and so forth for people that are in Europe or would like to go to Europe to do it.
Wow, have you done that?
I haven't done it myself, but I have on a couple of my trips to Europe. I was checking in with companies over there to find out whether or not they would be amenable to using American drivers. They said, yes, as long as the American driver has an international driver's license, you can get that from AAA, no big deal.
Do you know what I always wondered? I always wondered this. In France, they drive on the right side of the road. In England, they drive on the left side of the road.
Yeah.
So when you go through
the rest of Europe, all went to the left side. There were some of Scandinavia used to be on the left too, but they changed over.
Am I right? France is on the right side?
And yes, everything's on the right side in Europe except the UK.
So when you go through the Channel,
the British Isles, Ireland and Scotland and Wales and England, it's all on the left.
Okay, so when you go through the tunnel that goes under the English Channel, they call it the Channel. You start if you're in England going to France, you start out on the left side, and somewhere along the way you got to end up on the right side.
I never thought about that, but I'll bet the Channel works that way. The only thing is you don't drive through the Channel; you go through on a train. So you probably wouldn't notice the difference.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. You don't drive through the Channel? Oh, okay.
Unless they've modified it since I last checked into it. But
Okay.
the last I knew, it's still just the train.
Oh, okay.
We're told your book is 2 books in one. That one is the handbook and guide portion, and the other half is the job market section.
That's true. It used to be published that way as in book form, but now the job market section is online. So consequently, we can keep it up to date
Because
that
that
way
changes.
from one day to the next without having to republish the book every time a company changes.
Wow. Craig Chilton is our guest. I remember our discussion with you. It's been a long time. And afterwards, maybe for a month or so, we kept getting calls asking for the information. So one of the things, well, you're using the internet in a way that's very smart for what you're trying to do, and we'll do the same thing. We'll make sure this is on our Facebook page, which we didn't have back then. And for anybody who wants to look it up, it'll make it easier for us and easier for them to look up the information after the interview is over.
That'll be great.
So right now, let's see. If I was working for UPS, would I make more money delivering UPS trucks or more money delivering?
Actually, you would probably make very close to the same money doing either job. I mean, you're kept pretty busy working as a UPS driver. I wouldn't be surprised if they were making maybe at least $40,000 a year. But you're going to make 50 doing this if you follow the instructions in the book, and they're not difficult at all to follow. By the way, you're putting the information on Facebook is very welcome. It's a great way for people to get the information. But somewhere along the line here, if you'd like, I can give you an 800 number that people can get hold of right away for this.
All right, we're going to write it down. Go ahead. What is it?
Okay. It's 1-800
Uh-huh.
247
Uh-huh.
6553. Again, that's 1-800 247 6553. And if you call that number with either credit or debit card, or to ask for more information, or to ask for the address to which to mail for the book and the other things that come with it. It's a complete travel job package that includes the book we've talked about, which is 160 pages, 8.5 by 11, and also an audio CD that you can play in the vehicle while you're delivering the vehicles. And anyone who happens to be one of the first 10 people to call that number to order will get a free DVD that walks you through the hiring process. And this whole thing is $49.90 plus shipping. Anyone who chooses to mail for it, the 800 number will give you the mailing address. Then there's free shipping. There's no shipping charge if you mail for it.
Craig, I want to ask you a question about driving in general, driving a big vehicle in general. If I were to imagine this beautiful open road going through, the open areas of America, it sounds wonderful. But what about the cities? What do you ever have to drive into the very, very congested areas of cities?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're driving around in Florida, you already have the experience.
That's right.
And the rest of the country isn't much worse than that.
Well, let me tell you something. I grew up in New York, and New York has obviously some reputations of being congested in some areas.
Of course.
And yet it does not make me nervous only because I know the area. I go to Washington, D.C. just in my car, and it's probably just as congested, but suddenly I'm nervous because I don't know the area. It's kind of weird. When I know the area, it doesn't matter to me how many cars are on the road. But when so I mean, does that happen for you? It's a personal question, I guess, but
no, I guess it hasn't, because I've always been travel oriented throughout my whole life. But I'll tell you what's going to happen to you or anyone else who chooses to do this job. One of the first things they're going to find out is that this will change the entire region that they drive into their backyard. It'll become so familiar to them that they won't even think twice about where they're going. They'll just basically just go there. And if it happens to be the whole country that you want to cover, all the way from Alaska to Florida and everywhere in between, it'll turn the whole continent into your backyard.
Wow.
It really has that effect. I think of Sprague Street in Spokane, Washington, as readily as I think of State Street in Albany, New York. It's basically like home to me, no matter where I am.
Wow.
So you could set up trips in advance. You could say, get the RV from here in Florida, drive it up to Wisconsin, drop it off, then pick up another RV in Wisconsin, go to Oregon and drop it off, and then, do like a complete circle if you want to.
Sure, that's called continental interlock in my book. It's one of the special techniques that's gone into in detail to tell you how to do just exactly that very thing with ease, a lot of people wouldn't know how to put it together without that or without a lot of experimentation. But that's a scenario that's covered in the book very well, along with literally dozens and dozens of other ones.
So this seems like something that just looking at it personally, I would probably have liked to do it when I was like in my 20s, before I got married or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then I might like to do it now. My son's already married and on his own, so now I probably would do it. But during the family years, I can't imagine doing this. This would have kept me away from home too much, I think, for me personally.
Can you imagine how much of a geographical education kids get when their parents happen to be homeschoolers who are doing this and bringing them along on the trips?
Oh, well, that's an aspect of it I didn't think of.
That's a good
That's
good
another
observation.
aspect that's covered completely.
So
by
wait
the
a
book.
minute. So the buyer, they don't mind that you're taking your whole family with you?
No, not at all. As long as the people are known to you and not hitchhikers, the insurance will cover you.
Okay. Wow.
One of my most fun trips was my parents lived in Daytona Beach, and I was working out of Richmond, Virginia, and I had a trip coming up to California the next morning, and I called the folks and I said, well, heading off to California again. And my mother said wistfully, gee, I wish we could go. And she'd only been to California twice in her life, and then it was briefly. And I said, well, good, hop on Bird, come on up. We'll go out in the morning. And that's exactly what they did, and they were both in their early 80s.
Oh,
And
that's
I said,
sweet.
Wow.
I spent 6 days on a trip that would normally have taken me 4 or 5 days. I spent 6 days taking them across the country, through the most scenic parts of the Rocky Mountains, through Bryce and Zion National Parks, spent a night in Las Vegas, and arrived in California on the 6th day, and then we rented a car and spent about a week touring around California.
Oh,
Wow.
how wonderful
Wow.
is that?
Wow. So do you have a favorite brand of RV?
Actually, if I did, I don't know if I would probably want to say it because it could undercut some other RVs, but I will say there is one that no longer is being made that was one of my favorites I used to work for, so it's no competition to anybody now. But it was called Country Camper or Country Coach, depending on what you're familiar with. And it was made in Oregon, and I used to work for that company, and it was the most phenomenal coach I've ever seen in my life. There are others out there now that are close to it.
And when you do take the RV, say, across the country from point A to point B, do you have a maintenance schedule that you have to follow, and that the companies where you stop at to get an oil change, things like that, is known in advance?
No, there's no trip long enough that you would need to maintain it along the way. I've taken trips to Alaska many times, and that's the longest trip possible in North America, no matter where you're leaving from. And you wouldn't be on the road for enough miles to have any maintenance done to it.
Oh, wow.
Well,
This is awesome.
By the way, if anytime you take a trip to Alaska, there's a nice little perk that comes along with that.
What's
this
that?
is explained in the book, but it's explained along with hundreds of other little tips. And that's how you can see Hawaii for $100. Remember, the company pays to get you home, remember?
How do you get an RV to Hawaii?
Well, that's the thing. See, the company's not going to pay you to come home by way of Hawaii from Alaska.
Right.
But if you throw an extra $100 of your own money at the cost of that plane ticket, that will make you a dogleg off Hawaii.
I gotcha. Okay.
Wow.
So anytime you go to Alaska, you can see Hawaii for $100 of your own money extra.
Ah.
That's awesome.
Oh,
I'm there.
That's fun. You love traveling, don't you?
Oh, I love it. It absolutely. You know, this is getting paid to explore North America's wonderlands has got to be a dream come true for many thousands of these hundreds of thousands of people. About one half of the people do it part-time in some manner, which can be done even on weekends. 1/10 of the whole workforce, that's about 10,000 people, does this just on weekends and has a different job during the week and make an extra $250 a week this way. And you've got singles making up 60% of the workforce, making between $50,000 and $60,000 a year if they do it full-time. Couples, typically $65,000 to $80,000 a year if they do it full-time, making up 40% of the workforce. And seniors, this is the most important, perhaps, fact of all to get across, because a lot of seniors think that they are unhireable after they get to be 55 or so. 65% of all the workforce is under the age of 65, but the other 35%, the 1/3 of the whole workforce of 100,000 people doing this job, are over 65 and just as hireable, just as readily as everybody else. because actuarial tables of insurance companies show that they are the safest age group of drivers on the road due to their maturity of attitude and their experience.
Wow. Craig, you get us all excited when you talk this way. The book is called How to Get Paid $50,000 a Year to Travel Without Selling Anything. If you were listening, it's about delivering large vehicles like RVs and trailers and UPS trucks, school buses, ambulances, fire trucks. Who knows what else is out there? Maybe garbage trucks.
That'd be cool to
Maybe
drive
deliver
a fire truck.
Garbage trucks, all kinds of specialty vehicles.
You delivered a garbage truck?
I've never done that one, no. Time for everything, but I've never done that one yet.
All right. Craig Chilton is our guest, and the website is, what is the website?
Travelforpay.org. That's travel, F-O-R, not a number. Travelforpay.org. And be sure to use org, O-R-G. The other one won't work. Travelforpay.org, or to get free shipping, you can mail for it by calling the 800 number and getting the address. It's 1-800-247-6553. There is a shipping charge for the package if you order by credit or debit card, but that can also be done by calling the same 800 number, 1-800-247-6553.
All right. Craig, thank you for being on the air with us and getting us a little excited about something that might take us out of it.
Larry and Robin, it's great being on with you today.
We live in a destination, but sometimes those who live in the destination want to have another destination. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Craig, thank you for being on the air, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. We'll be right back.
News Talk 1370. WOCA invites you to discover your full business potential. News Talk Radio is the perfect environment for your advertising. WOCA's News Talk